Well, welcome back, and I want to introduce Diane Bjorkman of Gentle Transitions. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And we're going to hear all about her company and how it works, and it's much more than just a moving company. So tell us, or how did it start?
We actually started in 1990, so 21 years now, that we serve the whole Twin Cities, and we coordinate everything related to moves for older adults. The founder of our company had moved her mom 4 times in the last 7 years of her life, which was a lot of transitions for the whole family, and just sat down one day at the kitchen table and said, there's got to be a better way to do this. It upsets the life of the senior, and also it affects the whole family because everyone's trying to pitch in. So Gentle Transitions was born. And since then, we move hundreds and hundreds of people annually and try to make that whole process very smooth for them and very stress-free.
Okay. So what is the procedure? Kind of walk us through this.
Well, typically we get a phone call, my husband or I, and we own the company together, and it's usually a family or their children that are saying, I am so overwhelmed, just overwhelmed with what to do with this move. Mom or dad are moving, or it's the senior themselves, thought we could do it ourselves, and then suddenly it's getting closer, and now they're not getting ready, and they're not getting rid of the things in their home. So we send out one of our move managers. We have one move manager that works with the client from beginning to end through the whole process. So it's a great trust factor and bond that develops within that relationship.
Sure.
And I think once someone comes into their home, they're comfortable that someone has seen their situation and isn't there to judge their situation, but is to get them from here to here. And then we assign a move manager that seems to be a great match for that individual's situation or perhaps their personality. Okay. And then they go out and they visit with that adult and try to figure out, again, a plan for them. Once that's decided and then the client decides to go forward with us, we work very often with the floor plans where they're moving to. Okay. And then they help, what is really important to you, what are some treasures, and we can talk about this a little bit later, but what are some treasures that are important to you that you really want to see in your new residence? Okay. I have to add, although it may not seem like it makes a lot of sense, is the thought bubble over their heads, that this piece go, to them there's an emotional attachment. So that move manager tries to make sure those items can fit into the client's space. Okay. And then I think a big part of our service is what to do with all the things that aren't going to go. Right. And again, I'll make reference to a lot of the items that I brought today because people don't know where to begin. They haven't moved for 40 or 50 years. They've got this accumulation of stuff, possessions, treasures, whatever people call it. And so we help with all of that. Do you want to have an estate sale? Do you have enough to have an estate sale? Do you want to put things on consignment? Do you want to ship things to your kids? Would you like us to get them to charities? We know who accepts what and who rejects what. So we pull together that whole piece for our client of what to do with those things. Might be posting them on eBay or Craigslist. Then we actually physically pack up their home in 4 to 6 hours. We get the things moved to the new residence, and then we unpack and totally resettle their residence in 4 to 6 hours as well. Wow. So I think one of the greatest features is that it all happens in a certain period of time that's not too unsettling to the individual, and that they're settled 100%. One feature that you probably know, Terry, about our service is that we replicate people's space.
Yes, I've heard of that, yeah.
So that's a great feature, not only for anyone, because things are somewhat familiar and they still know where to go in the China hutch. They still have that photo gallery on the wall of their grandchildren, which we made identical at the new place. But from the community's point of view, where the individual moved to, they see people who use senior move management services like Gentle Transitions is to resettle so much quicker. Oh, sure. And start their new life in their new residence. They're not unsettled, they're not stressed, they're not becoming physically ill. And so there's lots of different angles in the benefit, you know, to the senior, to their family members, and to the community that they move to.
Well, that is awesome, because moving it's a huge undertaking, and I know when we moved, you know, where do I put this, where do I, you know, so that's a huge part of it, to go, like you said, to the drawer that you knew had whatever item in it. That Oh, that is just huge. That is great.
And when you talk about it being overwhelming for you,
Uh-huh.
then you add 30 or 40 years
Exactly.
onto your age, and that was a feature that I think Senior Move Management grew nationally because of the reasons that seniors have of being older, being in a home for a long time,
Yes.
so that downsizing piece is huge, having
Yes.
physical challenges that
Yep.
you don't have, that you may have when you're in your 90s or 80s,
Sure.
and having kids either not living close by or maybe not wanting to give their kids the power and the control of things that they should take and leave behind. So again, it's really even different from you, who is like myself, a more middle-aged person that finds moving overwhelming.
Great.
At that stage, yeah.
And that's interesting too that you're talking about eBay or Craigslist. So does somebody in your company handle that?
We can guide our clients, so we can give them resources. Sometimes they'll say, we can handle this ourselves.
Okay.
We give them the ideas and they'll say, my kids will do that part, or
Sure.
they're happy to do it, or we are happy to do it.
Okay.
So it depends on each situation,
Okay.
on how much people have the ability to do some of those items. Some are not computer savvy and have no idea how to post something on eBay, and some have spent a lot of time
Right.
on the computer at that point, so they're able to do things like that themselves. So each situation is very, very unique.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, before we run out of time or anything, let's kind of talk about the different things you
Okay,
brought.
I brought a few things that are kind of stereotypical, maybe, that some of our clients might have, that make that deciding and sorting factor challenging.
Yes.
This one example here of this trophy, it's a trophy that my husband won when he was the big chief of Bigfoot High School. And so that's something that isn't important to me per se, but it's important to him. So we move that from place to place to place. So when our seniors are moving, they have to decide, is it now time to let this go by the wayside? I would have been happy to do that a long time ago. Or is it time that we still, that's really important for us to have that go along with us? I brought a photograph of my parents because that is one of the most popular items that people have a hard time with. All their photographs and all of the memories that those photographs bring, and now they're going to a smaller space. So how do they sort through those, and what do they leave behind? And so we try to help our clients with ways that they can disseminate their items and feel good about it. So we give them options. The fur coat is from my mother-in-law. When she moved to a senior community in Florida, she wanted to give that up, and she treasured that her entire life.
Sure.
And now suddenly nobody wants it. I said, it's not something you wear to Cub or Byerly's or Lund's or the theater much anymore. And so how can we find a resource for our clients? Maybe some people might want a monetary value for their things to try to sell something, or again, they may like to donate that to a theater and think that it's getting some use somewhere.
Oh, sure. That's
So,
a great idea.
Yep, we try to pair that up. I brought some sterling silver piece over there, and that's another thing that a lot of times their children or grandchildren don't want anymore. And so what do we do with those things? We know some different resources where people can get a nice value for sterling.
Good.
So that's one, and then the last thing I brought was some stain, and that is because that very often, I think of my dad used to throw things out like paint and stain, and our clients can no longer do that. So we become the resource of what do you do with electronics that you can no longer throw out, with hazardous waste, and hooking the client up with the sites that they can take those things to, or we are happy to take them to for them. And so all those different options we pull together for our client.
How do you handle out-of-state situations?
We have a wonderful resource for out-of-state. We're a part of a national organization called the National Association of Senior Move Managers. And so we move a lot of people now that want to be closer to their kids. So we find a resource like us, let's just say in Florida, Texas, Colorado. They can do the estimating for that client. They can do the sorting. We find them, match them up with that person, we arrange the long distance movers, and then we receive the truck and do that totally total resettling.
Okay.
So by communicating with the individual that sees their things on that side, we have a pretty good idea of what's coming. Again, then they would work with the floor plan and help the client decide on that end. So we have been doing increasing amounts of out-of-state moves. Typically they're moving here to be closer to their kids, or they're moving to another state to be closer to their children.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a great resource. People can go to that website, which is NASM.org, and click on the state that they're looking for assistance in, and find
nice.
someone there. Yeah, it's a great option for people.
Oh, that's great. Well, I do know my mom had dementia, and any change, you could just tell that she went down.
Yeah.
So that is, to me, a very key, important part of your services, the settling them in what they're used to.
Yeah, and for, I think, people with memory loss, also that replicating part is huge, and because we've trained our employees to work with people who have memory loss, they know how to not ask that person a lot of questions. Where would you like this? We try to have it be just very a calm environment.
Yes.
One person only deals with the client, and we try to make that replicating even more so exact to what it was like. We've had family members say their parent never knew they moved because their living space had become so small in their residence that when we can replicate that in a new place, it just is still so familiar. So,
Yes, because you do think of that. You think of the rooms that you really use. Your bedroom, your living room, your kitchen.
Yep.
A lot of times the other rooms are just
don't get
there.
the use, yes.
Yeah, they're storage or whatever.
We find also a lot of times with our senior clients and those with memory loss that even their kitchen things, they'll put out on the counter what they use. So those things become just very accessible to them, and that's their world, which is a little bit smaller.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. That's really great. Do you basically stay in the that age? Do you help like young professionals? Because I could see it would be, you could expand this.
You could expand. We will have people call and say, I'm pregnant, delivering a child the month that I'm moving, and would you assist me? And of course we are happy to do that. So usually a tiny percent have been people other than seniors. But we just started in November a new affiliate, and it's called GT Move Concierge, and it's a similar service, but for people of all ages that aren't moving to senior housing.
Okay.
Similar, and maybe bringing in some more options of if they'd like interior design or staging and all those pieces.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Oh, that's great.
That's exciting.
Yes, definitely. Do you have anything else you'd like to tell our audience?
No, I think probably the biggest thing that I hope for people is that they become aware of this option. My least favorite line is when I'm out at a vendor fair or speaking at a church and people will say, where were you when I moved my mother, or where were you when I moved last year? And it was such a nightmare, and this service is such a benefit, such a gift. So I'm just always trying to get the word out there and have people share with friends and neighbors and relatives that this industry exists, and for people to explore it. It's always a complimentary visit for people, so yeah, nothing to lose.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Diane, for being on our show, and I hope that was helpful information for anyone. If you know anyone, Gentle Transitions is the place to call.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
Thanks so much.